Alright, hello Andre. Um, so here's my final project. Here's my scene. Woo. Alright, and so everything is included. We'll start with the models first. And so I created unit box, or unit pyramid with texture, unit sphere with texture. And so you saw the moon and the sun had the unit sphere with the texture. And it uses the latest version of the standard vertex with the mesh number and everything. And the model constructor, it's loaded from file, go to my models, from file, from pre-made, and then this is a flat plane. And then from also using the standard vert and indices. And so the skybox is implemented like a graphic object. So you have the skybox, and you create it, pass in the device, the shader texture, the texture, and then the size. And so the skybox has a put in the shader texture, and it has a model pointer and then a graphic object texture pointer. And basically it's like a wrapper for the graphic object. So after it gets created, you go ahead and render it and set the texture in the world through the graphic object. And so the terrain classes are the same. So the terrain has a terrain model, and pass in the device, the height map file, this is my custom shader for the scene that has the lights, texture, and then you set the width, the height, repeat U and repeat V on there. And then it creates a terrain model and calculates all the normals. And yeah. Okay, yeah, sorry. So I created a sun and a moon with the models from my pre-made models, and then you can see those here. There they are. Hey, there's you. And they actually, and then the skybox and terrain, it's the same. You pass in the shader texture and shader texture light respectively, and as well as the texture that you put in. And then for the skybox, you set the size, and that's in the function. So if we set it to really small, it will go ahead and render it at that size. I think it's too small. Small. So yeah, I'll render at that size. And the same is true for the terrain. You have the width and the height, and then the repeat U and repeat V in there. So for the shader classes, you have, I had to use the shader texture and shader texture light. And so you create them and pass in. This is my custom one for the lights that has 3 spotlights and 1 directional light. Or 2 directional lights, sorry. And then creates all of it, and you can set each directional light and each spotlight parameter in there. And this is for the textures only, because it uses my custom one. No. So you pass in the you add directional light and spotlights to it, and then when you calculate it out, you have to do 2 more calculations. The directional and then the 3 spotlights. And then as you can saw, each one worked. And then so the multiple light sources have 3. I'm sorry, I have 4. It's on here. So yeah. So I set 1 directional light that has the midnight hue, and 3 spotlights. 1 comes from the moon, 1 comes from the sun, and then 1 comes from the car. And so the directional light goes straight down on the y-axis. And then each directional light comes from the moon and the sun. And you can see it reflects off the normals of the terrain. So the sun is this brighter yellow, and then the moon's a darker midnight blue. And then the car has a directional light right here that's reflecting off of the terrain. Yeah, so this car's just cruising. And so those are my multiple lights. And so for the default values, how I did that for my lights, let's close all these. So in the shader, do 9. So default value for the fog. You start out, the fog start at the max, and then the range can also be at the max, and the color at the transparent. And then whenever you have the user set the fog effects. Here they are. And then when it sets to context, it'll send the fog parameters. This isn't the most efficient. And I can actually probably have it in the graphics object under render, which would be more efficient. And I think I didn't have time to research it, but I think Gary was talking about, because you have to set it to context to like send the default, and I think he said that there's a struct that you can use when you create the buffer. You can send along those default values, but I'm not sure on that one. So I'd have to look more into that as well. And so I set the fog effects in here, and it messes up with the scaling when you do a world scale matrix. So I had to set them different times for the different objects that were scaled weird. So I don't know how to correct that. I guess either do each object with a size parameter put in, or you can just have the artist have it render to the size, or create it to the size. So as you go far away, it gets fogged up. And then the graphics objects. They're on a per, all of them are on a per mesh basis. So the color light has, you can set the world, the color, and then it creates a array of meshes for each one, if the model has multiple meshes. And then the graphics object texture has texture pointers to them. And then the texture light, and then when you render all of them, it goes through and sends the world and material, and also sets the texture, and then gets a context from the texture, the shader texture object, to render each mesh. And then the constructors, all receive shader textures as well as the models. And so here's my DX app. The init just has creating and setting the variables. And then the update has the motion for all of the all the objects in motion. And then when you draw the scene, all you're doing is setting the shaders to context and sending what needs to be sent, like the cam matrices